The family dinner at Lucia's, an upscale Italian restaurant my sister Melissa had chosen, should have been my first warning. She only picked expensive venues when she needed something significant. I arrived to find her already seated with our older brother Derek and our parents, 3 wine bottles on the table, another red flag. Andrea. Melissa stood, air-kissing both my cheeks with the affected warmth she'd adopted since marrying into money. You look tired. Working too hard at that little nonprofit. I was 37, director of financial oversight at a major philanthropic foundation. To my family, this translated to works at a charity. Something quaint but not particularly impressive compared to Melissa's marriage to a surgeon and Derek's real estate empire of 3 rental properties. Just busy, I said, taking my seat. What's the occasion? Does family need an occasion? Mom asked, but her smile was tight. We ordered, made small talk through appetizers, and I waited. The ask always came around the main course. Right on schedule as our entrees arrived, Melissa set down her fork and reached across the table for my hand. Andrea, I need to talk to you about something important. Sister to sister. Here it was. Derek and I are in a bit of a situation, she began. Nothing serious, just a temporary cash flow issue. We need to borrow some money. How much? 35,000. I set down my wine glass carefully. That's not a small amount. It's temporary, Derek interjected. One of my tenants broke their lease and I have a mortgage gap. Plus Melissa's gallery opening needs additional funding. Your gallery? I asked Melissa. An art gallery. I'm curating. It's going to be huge, but we need capital for the opening event. The space, the catering, the marketing. Melissa doesn't ask for much, Mom said pointedly. She's always been so independent. But siblings help siblings in times of need. The phrase was deliberate, designed to trigger obligation. And this is definitely just a loan, Dad added. Not like before. The word hung there, referencing the $78,000 in temporary loans I'd provided over the past 9 years. Money that had never been repaid despite countless promises. I'll need to think about it, I said. Think about it? Melissa's voice rose slightly. Andrea, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't urgent. The gallery lease is due next week. Then you probably should have planned better. The table went silent. That's harsh, Derek said. We're family. When family needs help. Family also pays back loans, I said quietly. I've loaned you both significant amounts over the years. None of it's been repaid. We've had setbacks, Melissa said defensively. The pandemic affected everyone. The pandemic ended years ago. And my last loan to you was 3 months ago. $6,000 for your emergency dental work. Melissa's hand instinctively went to her mouth, where perfectly straight teeth suggested cosmetic veneers rather than emergency care. This is different, she insisted. This is an investment in my future. The gallery will generate income. My phone buzzed. A text from my accountant, Patricia. Audit complete. Results are concerning. Call me immediately. I'd hired Patricia 6 weeks ago to conduct a private forensic audit of my finances. Specifically, to trace every dollar I'd given to family members and investigate some irregularities I'd noticed in my credit reports. Excuse me, I said, standing. I need to take this call. Outside the restaurant, I dialed Patricia. Andrea, she answered immediately. We need to meet. Tonight if possible. What did you find? Your sister and brother have been doing more than asking for loans. They've been actively accessing your accounts. My stomach dropped. What? Your sister has your bank account information. I'm guessing from when she helped you set up online banking last year? She's made 12 unauthorized transfers over 8 months. Small amounts, $500 to $1,200, designed not to trigger alerts. How much total? $9,400. And Derek? Derek's more ambitious. He added himself as an authorized user on your credit card, forged your signature on the application. He's run up $23,000 in charges. Home improvement stores, mortgage payments, and interestingly, a jewelry store purchase for $8,000. The jewelry Derek's wife had been wearing at Thanksgiving. The inheritance from her grandmother. There's more, Patricia continued. I found a loan application from 2 months ago. A $50,000 personal loan using your information and forged signature as co-signer. It was approved. $50,000? The money went into a joint account registered to Derek and Melissa. They've already spent $30,000 of it. I leaned against the restaurant's brick wall, trying to process the scale of the betrayal. I've documented everything, Patricia said. Bank statements, credit reports, forged signatures, transaction histories. It's comprehensive enough for criminal prosecution. What do you want to do? Through the restaurant window, I could see my family laughing, drinking expensive wine, living a lifestyle funded by money they'd stolen from me. Send the full report to my email. And Patricia? Contact the fraud departments at every financial institution involved. File formal complaints. I want this on record. That will trigger immediate investigations. Credit cards will be frozen, accounts locked. Good. Do it now. I returned to the table. The conversation stopped as I sat down. Everything okay? Mom asked. Actually, no. I opened my email on my phone, pulling up Patricia's preliminary report. I just received some interesting information about my finances. Andrea, we're having a family dinner, Dad said. Can't work, wait. This isn't work. It's personal. Very personal. I looked at Melissa. When you helped me set up online banking last year, did you keep my login information? Her face went pale. What? No, Because according to my forensic accountant, someone with access to my accounts has made 12 unauthorized transfers over 8 months. Small amounts. $9,400 total. The table went silent. And Derek, I turned to my brother. Did you add yourself as an authorized user on my MasterCard? I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but he wasn't meeting my eyes. I pulled up an image of the forged authorization form. This is your signature. On an application to add yourself to my credit account. You've charged $23,000. Including $8,000 at Cartier, the necklace Rachel wore at Thanksgiving. Mom's wine glass paused halfway to her mouth. But the most interesting discovery, I continued, is this. I pulled up the loan application. A $50,000 personal loan, co-signed using my information and forged signature. The funds were deposited into a joint account belonging to Derek and Melissa. We didn't, Melissa stammered. The signature analysis confirms the forgery. The bank records show the transfers. And the fraud department has already been notified. Dad's face had gone red. Tao, hold on. No, you hold on. I turned to face him directly. For 9 years I've given you money. Loans that were never repaid. Emergency funds that were never emergencies. And apparently that wasn't enough. So you escalated to theft. We're family, Melissa said desperately. We share resources. Sharing requires consent. This is fraud, identity theft, and forgery. These are federal crimes. My phone buzzed with notifications. Text messages from Derek and Melissa. Your card was declined. Why is my card not working? That would be the fraud department's freezing the accounts, I said. As of about 5 minutes ago, every financial institution involved has been notified. The cards are frozen, the loan is under investigation, and criminal complaints have been filed. You can't do this, Derek said, standing up. We'll pay it back. With what money? The $35,000 you were about to scam from me tonight. Scam. Melissa's voice rose. We were asking for a loan. You were asking for more money while actively stealing from me. That's not a loan request, that's greed. Keep your voice down, Mom hissed, aware of other diners watching. You're causing a scene. I'm exposing theft. There's a difference. I pulled up another document on my phone. My complete financial tracking spreadsheet. Over 9 years, I've given you $78,000 in loans. None repaid. You've stolen an additional $32,400 through account access and credit card fraud. And you attempted to obtain $50,000 more through a fraudulent loan, of which you've already spent $30,000. The total stared back from my screen. $140,400. $840,000, I said. That's what this family has taken from me. We didn't take it, Dad said. You gave most of it willingly. Under false pretenses. Every loan was promised to be repaid. Every emergency turned out to be a vacation or a luxury purchase. And when asking wasn't fast enough, you escalated to stealing. A restaurant manager approached our table. "Is everything all right here?" "We're fine," Mom said quickly. "Actually, we're not," I said. "But we're leaving." I stood, pulling out my wallet and placing $300 bills on the table. "This covers my portion of dinner and tip. It's the last money any of you will get from me." "Andrea, please." Melissa reached for my arm. "Let's talk about this reasonably. We can work something out." "There's nothing to work out. The fraud reports have been filed. The institutions will investigate. You'll be contacted by law enforcement within 48 hours. You're calling the police on your own family?" Derek's face was red with anger. "I didn't call them. The banks did. It's required by law when fraud is reported. But if they ask, yes, I'll press charges." "How can you do this?" Mom's voice broke. "Over money? It's not about money. It's about trust, boundaries, and the law. You committed crimes. Now there are consequences." I picked up my coat. "For what it's worth, I loved you. Wanted to help you. Believed every promise to repay, every emergency excuse. But you never saw me as family, just as a resource to exploit. Where do we go from here?" Dad asked quietly. "That's up to you. Cooperate with the investigations, accept the consequences, and maybe someday we can rebuild something honest. Or fight it and face maximum penalties." I walked out of the restaurant into the cool evening air. Behind me, I could hear Melissa crying, Derek arguing, and Mom trying to calm them both down. My phone rang. "Lucia. The fraud alerts are processing," she said. "By midnight tonight, all 3 credit cards will be canceled. The bank has frozen the loan account pending investigation. And I've flagged your accounts with additional security protocols. No one can access them without biometric verification." "Thank you, Patricia. There's something else. When I was conducting the audit, I found attempted access to your investment accounts. Someone tried to log in 17 times over the past 3 months using various password combinations. Let me guess. IP addresses from Melissa's and Derek's homes?" "Exactly. They weren't just stealing from accessible accounts. They were actively trying to hack into everything." I thought about the dinner, how Melissa had asked about my little nonprofit job, how they'd all assumed I barely made ends meet. They had no idea what they'd been trying to steal. "Patricia, can you send me my complete financial portfolio summary? I want documentation of what they were actually trying to access." "Sending it now." The email arrived within minutes. I opened the document. Primary savings and checking, $340,000. Investment portfolio, $2,800,000. Retirement accounts, $1,400,000. Real estate, condo plus rental property, $1,900,000. Foundation stock options, $2,600,000. Total net worth, $9,040,000. $9 million. They'd been stealing from someone worth $9 million while thinking I was barely scraping by. The irony was staggering. The investigation moved quickly. Within a week, both Melissa and Derek had been interviewed by federal agents. The forged signatures on the loan application and credit card authorization were confirmed. The unauthorized bank transfers were documented and traced. They were offered a choice: plead guilty to fraud and identity theft, accept restitution terms and probation, or go to trial and face potential prison sentences. They both accepted plea deals. Derek was sentenced to 2 years probation and ordered to repay $23,000. Melissa received 18 months probation and owed $9,400. The fraudulent $50,000 loan was voided, but they still owed the bank for the $30,000 they'd already spent, which meant selling Derek's rental properties and Melissa canceling her gallery dreams. My parents had been knowing participants. They'd encouraged the loan requests while knowing about the theft. They weren't charged criminally, but were required to attend financial counseling and sign legally binding agreements never to request money from me again. The extended family split predictably. Some called me vindictive, choosing to believe Melissa's and Derek's version where they were victims of my cruelty. Others, including my Uncle James, reached out with their own stories of loans to Melissa and Derek that were never repaid. "Derek borrowed $12,000 from me 5 years ago," Uncle James told me over coffee. "Said it was for a down payment on a rental property. Later I found out he'd used it for a vacation to Europe. When I asked about repayment, he said family doesn't keep score. The pattern extended beyond me. They'd been running the same con on everyone, leveraging family obligation to fund their lifestyle. 3 months after the dinner that changed everything, I sat in my home office reviewing the final settlement documents. Every stolen dollar was accounted for. Every forged signature documented. Every violation of trust legally recorded. My career had flourished. Without the constant drain of family financial manipulation, I'd accepted a promotion to Chief Financial Officer of the foundation. My salary had increased to $450,000 annually, and my investment portfolio had grown to $9.8 million. But more importantly, the guilt was gone. The sense that I should be doing more, giving more, sacrificing more for family, all of it had finally lifted. I'd started dating someone I'd met at a financial conference. When I'd explained my family situation, he'd nodded with understanding. My sister tried something similar, he said. Good for you for protecting yourself. He didn't see my money as his opportunity. He saw me as a person worthy of respect. That was the difference between family and people who share your DNA. My phone buzzed with an email from Melissa, the first communication since the sentencing. Andrea. The probation officer made me write this. She said I needed to take accountability. I'm supposed to say I'm sorry and that I understand what I did was wrong. Fine. I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught, sorry I did it. The counselor showed me the numbers. $140,000 over 9 years. That's crazy. Derek and I sold almost everything to pay it back. His rentals, my car, my jewelry. Now we live in a small apartment. It's humiliating. The counselor asked. If your sister had asked for $140,000 up front, would you have ever agreed to repay it? The truth? Well, we saw you as the successful one. The one who could always afford it. We never thought about what it cost you. We never asked about your work or your life. We just assumed you existed to fund ours. I don't expect forgiveness. But I finally understand. Family isn't a one-way ATM. Melissa. I read the email 3 times. No excuses. No guilt trips. Just honesty. I didn't reply. Maybe someday I will. Maybe it's closure. Either way, I'm free. The dinner at Lucia's was the last time I pretended. The last time I paid their bills. While they looked down on me. Melissa had said, siblings help siblings. So I called my accountant. Filed the fraud report. And their credit card stopped working. They lost access to my money. I gained something better, freedom. Family isn't a bank. Love shouldn't require theft. Sometimes the kindest act is to stop enabling destruction. I helped them by forcing them to face the truth. They hated me for it. Maybe one day they'll understand. Until then, I'll keep living, protecting my peace, and choosing reality over guilt. As I learned this, you can't help people who steal from you. You stop the theft. Call it what it is. Not family duty. Not support. Just fraud. And fraud has consequences. Even in families. Especially in families.